Well, this is not a video I anticipated ever having to make. I guess I'll just come right out and say it in the first 10 seconds of the thing. Is there going to be racism induced censorship of the solo leveling anime? That really is the only question of today's video, and I just said it out loud and it still sounds quite ridiculous to me, but okay. So, backstory. Why am I even bringing this up? Well, it's a very short story. I made the whole video about the Lookism anime trailer, and it was brought to my attention by someone else that the trailer contained Easter eggs. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I went and rewatched the trailer, and I was like, oh, that's sick. And then I got thinking and was wondering, is there any Easter eggs in the solo leveling trailer? So I went ahead and rewatched it a couple times, and I didn't spot anything. I didn't spot anything that I would consider noteworthy. No Easter eggs, nothing cool. And so I got a little bit lazy, and I was like, well, I'm sure other people have combed through this trailer frame by frame, analyzing each pixel, so I wonder if anyone else has reported Easter eggs. And not that I didn't see any Easter eggs that people had talked about for solo leveling, but uh, one thing I did see people talking about was racism and censorship of the anime. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, because it's just so wacky and weird that we might as well talk about it. So the main question is, will there be censorship in the solo leveling anime? Will things be changed? And why would there be? I guess I should sort of tell people who don't know, why would there even be any censorship or changes? Well, there's two reasons. One is small and one is really big. And so we'll start with the big one first. Japan is an antagonistic force in the solo leveling series. They are outright villainous, and China is all. I mean, this is not related to what we're talking about for the most part, but China and the Chinese government also have a little bit of shade thrown at them. So clearly, the author is not afraid to let us know which countries he has beef with, but we know that Japan and Korea have quite the history, right? There's an entire Wikipedia page on just anti-Japanese sentiment in Korea, and I'm not saying it's not justified. I'm honestly not here to talk about the atrocities of Japan's past. I'm here to talk about the atrocities of their future in the solo leveling anime. And so there is a whole arc called the Jeju Island Arc. I'm sorry if I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm not Korean. But in that arc, there is sort of the main villain, the monsters as per usual, but the secondary villain of the arc is Japanese hunters and the Japanese Hunter Association slash possibly government. And so I've seen people saying, well, Japan and Korea hate each other, so why on earth would Japan animate this? They're probably going to cut or censor or completely change this arc. And to that, I really don't know what to say. Oh, and we'll talk about the small reason. That was the big reason, the whole anti-Japanese thing. But the other reason is that there are multiple versions of solo leveling. I'm pretty sure that there was, I know that there was a Japanese version. I've seen it. I know the character's name is a little different, or not a little different. The character's name is completely different. So I know that there is like a standalone Japanese version, and I haven't read it, but I've heard people say that that was changed in it, or that things were changed. So that's the other reason that we don't know, or I don't know. I've looked it up. I couldn't find anything of like the companies making the anime saying we are using the Korean version or we're using the Japanese version. I'm assuming that they're using the Korean version because in the trailer that they put out, it has Korean names in it. But ultimately, we don't really know because the trailer didn't show much. It kind of didn't show anything. It showed like one picture. So back to the big thing that this video is about, and it still feels ridiculous. The potential censorship, sorry, because of the anti-Japanese sentiment in the series. Now, like I said before, I understand. I'm not here to be like, why does Korea hate Japan? I understand why these two countries don't like each other and don't get along. I may not be super into Asian culture, but I do kind of like history, and so I know about, the comfort women and the whole Japan Sea thing. Like, I got it. The independence movement, the March 1st thing. I understand. Um, but overall, what do I think about this concern? I think it's both funny and a little bit valid. However, it might it might be valid, right? You might be right to worry that Japan would cut out the anti-Japanese evil boys um, from the series. However, ultimately, we don't even know when or if that will be in the anime. So I would urge people to not be very concerned about that right now. In fact, if this arc, the whole island arc, was even in season one, that would be more concerning than any of the censorship that may or may not occur. And the other reason that I think it's not really worth worrying about is because it's not something that's super integral to the story. Like, I'm all for adapting an author's work as they wanted it to be. That being said, it's not like Japan being a villain is really a long running thing or it ever builds to more. I mean, they could easily change it to a different country. They could change the story a little bit so that they like are rogue people and it's not sanctioned by the Japanese government or like Japanese Hunters Association. This is something that is pretty much dropped entirely after the arc in which they are evil. They show up in Korea, they fuck shit up, and then they die, and then that's the end of it. Japan is essentially neutered. I mean, I wouldn't want to see them cut out because they're interesting characters, but ultimately they could just change and say, oh, they're from, like, I don't know, Lithuania, and people would be like, oh, okay, that's weird, but whatever. So I get why some people are talking about this. It's interesting to think about, but really it calls attention to a whole other problem that I think people need to speak more of. I mean, forget the censorship, or sorry, the potential for censorship that exists. There's a more pressing issue that has been a problem, and that is, why are these companies, Crunchyroll, whoever, why are they having Korean series animated by Japanese studios at all in the first place? Why does it matter? I mean, they're a Korean series. They're likely to be the most popular, like the ones we've seen so far, the most popular in Korea and the United States slash West. Uh, so I don't know why I said United States slash West, just the West. Um, and it's not like some guy in the Western world is going to be like, I don't speak either of these languages, but I refuse to read subtitles for this one. There are plenty of animation talents in Korea. There are plenty of studios who produce animation in Korea. So, why on earth are Korean series being outsourced to Japanese studios when, first of all, we know that these two countries hate each other? And why in the first place? I mean, I kind of get it. It's like, well, Japan has the weeaboo army. Weeaboos will support anime, and they don't really care about this. But at the same time, Korea's got the Koreaboos, and they will support anything as well. So I really don't get it. Are Japanese people willing to just work cheaper? Like, what is going on? And now that we have Lookism that is actually full blown Korean produced, I'm especially confused because clearly this is possible to do. There is talent to do it. There's studios who can and will do it. So why on earth are these Korean manhwa even being animated in Japan in the first place? It's so confusing. It'd be like if you told me that, I don't know, what's a random webtoon? El Seed, or like uh Lore Olympus. It took me a long time to remember that one. Or Unordinary. It's like if you told me if one of those prominent webtoon series was being produced by like a Ukrainian cartoon channel. I would just be like, what? Why? That's so fucking weird. So the moral of this story, to wrap everything up, is A, let series be animated and adapted in their own culture so that way things aren't lost in translation or deliberately left out when there is a hundreds of year long beef between two countries who hate each other. And on top of that, if you're worried about racism induced censorship in the solo leveling anime, um, Don't be, because it's probably, who knows if we're ever even going to get to that point in the series, anyways. So worry about that problem when and if it arises. Thank you. Goodbye.